Here is being born again, part 2. I was born again. I grew up without any knowledge of God in a real way. Didn't really believe there was a God. Didn't care. Honestly, just didn't care. Didn't ask the question that much. Maybe when I was 7 or 8 a few times. But after that, really didn't even bother to wonder about it. And it didn't bother me that I didn't know. I didn't care. I was just living my life. Got to be a teenager, hurt myself, hurt some people. Didn't care much about that, honestly. As much as I should have. Cared, but not enough to really fix it, you know? So, one day, I was invited to a meeting where there were people that knew God, and I wound up getting to know the Lord at that meeting. The Lord got to know me. He came and found me, took me, and I was changed. And this is going to sound, this is like, this will be an interesting story in a sense. I'm not sure. Some of you are going to be like, this isn't scriptural. I don't know. I'm not making a hard and fast doctrine out of it. I'm just telling you what it seems to me that I'm kind of feeling, and not feeling, because everybody goes, oh, don't live by feeling. You know, it seems to me this is what I'm understanding. So when I use words like feeling, don't flip out, okay? If you're a Christian, just go with it, okay? Oh shoot, I did get. Okay, so what I'm understanding about my life, I was crying a little while ago. So just listen to a beautiful song, just a beautiful song about the grace of God, the joy of knowing God, and it reminded me of when I was first born again, the freedom I felt. It's actually called Beautiful Day. And it was just, I was born again, and it was a beautiful day. It was beautiful. And I just loved life for the first time. Really. I wasn't one of these kids that popped out of the womb loving life. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I wasn't what you would call it, just a joyful bundle of happiness, you know. I remember being kind of, I don't know, what's the word? You know, just more intense than other kids, I guess, you know. Not like to a massive extreme necessarily, but you know, probably a little bit more than most. Shy. So when I was born again, I felt like it was like, it wasn't even anything I necessarily thought I had done so wrong. It was just, I think what the Bible describes as being dead to God, being dead in my sin, just not knowing, just being separated, not having faith, not knowing God was real. And all of a sudden, he's real? Oh my goodness. I felt like Adam. I think, in a sense, this is where you're going to go, that's heresy if you're a Christian. So all you Christians could just get over yourself. But yeah, I felt like Adam, born into this world, and go, oh, this is cool. And I just had never loved the world that much. I was 19, you know, I had tried partying, I had tried not partying, I had tried being a good kid, I had tried being a bad kid. And I mean, some people just love everything. They love from the day they're born till whenever. They just love everything they do. And I didn't love any of it. I did it, but yeah, anyway, you know the type. That was me. So I was born again, and I was just thrilled. absolutely ecstatic about life. And I knew it was because of Jesus, because I knew that all this theology that Paul speaks of in Romans, the book of Romans and Galatians, where you're born again, and where Jesus says you're born again, and Paul explains that more fully, where your old man dies and new man is alive. And this is where it's not exactly like Adam, because Adam wasn't alive before he was alive, but the part of me that didn't know God came alive to God, as if Adam had been, when Adam had his breath breathed into his nostrils. It was similar, in a sense, to how I felt as a new believer. Just like the world looked different. The world looked exciting. It looked like a place I might want to explore and enjoy and do things in. And so I did for a couple of years. But, I was going to church, and people in church have things to teach, and they're doing their best. And somewhere along the line, this is where it's similar to the Garden of Eden. Somewhere along the line, there's a deception that came. And instead of eating from that tree of life and happiness and joy and thanks and gratitude, Jesus, thank you so much, I'm alive. Thank you that God is real. Thank you that you are real. Thank you that I am not dead in my sin. I'm actually alive to God. I can almost hear him. I can sense him. I can read scripture, and it's alive. It's meaningful. And I don't get all of it, but I can talk about resurrection, and it's exciting. It's not just like, yeah, that's weird. How could that be? I know it's true. I know it's real. I get it. I had my doubts, but I was alive. And then somewhere along the way, I just got off. Satan, the serpent, got me into my head, into trying to figure it out a little too much, maybe, or something. And I started to feel like I had to, like, what am I supposed to do for God? So you start trying to do things instead of be things. Instead of be alive, you try to do the things that you think you're supposed to, and you turn those into some sort of a burden that you have to carry. And I think I wound up going from the tree of life, in a sense, to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I wasn't like born again and then not born again. I'm not trying to say that. So again, theology wise, don't get all twisted up. But something happened and my heart got heavy. And I feel like when I read about Adam wandering out of the garden and like not being happy, like, hey, this isn't working. What's going on? We were all happy here, and now it's not. Something like that happened to me. And now I'm somehow back. I'm back to life. I came back to that tree of life a couple years ago in a big way, and it's still a bit confusing sometimes to understand what's happening in my life. Why are there times where I feel alive? I can sense the life. I'm happy. It's like wandering around the garden with a friend, just enjoying the trees and enjoying the view and enjoying the work that you need to do for the day and not feeling so burdened by it, and just like, oh, this will be fun. Let's try this. Let's do that. Let's make a tree fort. Oh, we're going to need actual houses for children when we have them. Okay, well, let's think about how you do that. And instead of it being, I got to have kids because it's just, oh, if I don't, I'm not being responsible. I got to have a house so I can take care of them, and I got to have a job, and if I don't have a job that's paying good money, I'm irresponsible. And all the burdens that we can go. So you can do it two ways. You know what I mean? You can be like, this is exciting, we'll figure it out. Or the other way where it's like, oh, this is a massive burden and it's going to be unbearable. And somehow I got in that massive burden phase again. And I spent a long time there. And there's good reason. You know, a lot of painful things happened there. And I allowed that demonic power that lies to us to get me off track. And I'm not going to tell you how in my life necessarily. You have your own ways that you get off track. But somewhere along the line, and it was horrible. It was horrible. Some of it was just, there's tragedy that happened in my life. Tragedy. Horrible, horrible tragedy. Not just talking about losing a job and, you know, oh, I could have been rich, but now I'm working hard because I made a bad decision on a job interview. No, I'm talking about losing people that you shouldn't lose. Horrible things that wound you deeply. And Satan thought he had me. That deceiver did, in a sense, almost kill me again. My heart, the joy was lost. The grace was lost. I fell from grace, as Paul said to the Galatians. You've fallen from grace. Get back on track. Get back to the cross. Get back to Jesus. Understand what he's done for you. Get back in life. Life in him. Don't stay dead to God. Don't have your mind separated from his. Don't live like a dead person. Allow his Spirit to heal the wounds. Yeah, they're real. They're so real. And I wonder, did Adam ever come out of it again? I don't know. I somehow get the sense that Eve did, and I do think by the time you get to Genesis chapter 5, ancient writers had a funny way of writing. Genesis chapter 5, it says that Adam had a son in his own image, and his name was Seth. And Seth was a good son. And it just makes me wonder, because he had Cain and Abel, and Cain killed Abel. So he had two sons. That's the kind of tragedy I'm talking about, like losing people that, like I feel like I've lived some of that experience that Adam lived through, and the tragedy of that. And you can't just overcome that in a day. You can't just say, well, I'm going to move on. You know, you have to live with that for a while. It has to work its way through you, and it never really leaves completely, but you work through it. You grieve through it. And I see that in Adam. I see him. There's nothing about him in chapter 4 of Genesis. But you see Cain killing Abel, and you just think of Adam probably just going, what is going on? This is going from bad to worse. I had a beautiful thing right in front of me, and I gave it up. I just disobeyed and followed this lying beast who fooled me into thinking he was a beautiful leader that could teach me things I didn't know. And I followed him instead of following the God who made me. And I lost my way. And I lost my sons. I'm just devastated. And then Seth was born in the image of Adam. And Seth wound up being the line, the ancestor of Noah. And Noah was a good man. He was a righteous man. It's like things started turning around with Seth. So I feel like that's kind of where those of us who go through deep, deep, deep pain, devastating loss, horrific tragedy that you think you're never going to recover from. And then somehow Seth appears. And you realize things are going in the other direction again. And you never forget the pain of Cain and Abel. But you have Seth. And Seth can be a new friend, can be finding finally the church that you know is where you're supposed to be, finding the spouse that you were hoping to find, turning away from the foolish things you've been doing and stepping into something that feels right finally. Like this is God. This is godly. This is good. God's not, I don't have to hide this from God, stepping into the freedom again. I just think there's something to that, and I think that that's Romans 7 and 8, and we are, in Romans 7, we are just a person who's trying, you just can't do it. In Romans 8, Jesus reappears. Jesus appears again in our life. And we go, okay. All right. I think I'm okay. Seth appears. I'm not equating Seth with Jesus. Jesus is the king. But Seth was a good man, from what we understand, as far as I know. So, I was crying today because I listened to a song, that song called A Beautiful Day, and I remembered how much I loved God that day that I was born again. And then I remembered the pain that happened when I listened to that wicked serpent that does his best to destroy us all. And I'm so sad I followed his voice at all, but I did. And tragedy came, and but Jesus is bigger. So the man that followed Satan, followed the lie, is dead in Christ. He tried to raise his ugly head. He tried to listen to the devil and do what the devil wanted and get in that dark place. And he did for a while. Quite a while. And that man struggled with being good, struggled with giving up on being good, struggled with trying to obey God by listening to all the law that God had and trying to figure that out and do the best with that. And that man just finally, once again, just died, and this new man's alive in Jesus. And may that never change. I pray that'll never change. It's all I want anymore. Again, it's all I want. I just want him. I want him. I want to live with him. I want to live for him. And I hope to share that with others. I don't really know how, but I hope I do. And I hope that his grace somehow comes through my life to others, and they see the grace of God in their life too, because it's amazing. It's awesome to be alive to God and dead to sin. It's awesome. That man's dead. I'm just not letting him live anymore. When he raises his ugly head, I just remind myself that he's dead. And I step into Jesus.